Good afternoon. I'm Assistant Sheriff Dori Koren with the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. Before I begin today, I just want to take a moment and acknowledge the tragic death of our officer, Officer Colton Pulsifer. Officer Pulsifer sadly lost his life early this morning on his way back from work when he was hit by a wrong-way driver driving home. Our Nevada State Police partners will be leading the investigation, and we want to thank them in advance for their efforts and their support. And we also want to take a moment and thank the community for the outpouring support. This is a hard loss for our agency, and it's a hard loss for the community as a whole. And we appreciate when the community is there for our officers, and just ask all of you to please keep your thoughts and prayers in mind for the family. Now, today's briefing is intended to provide additional details on an officer-involved shooting that occurred this past Sunday, December 8th, 2024. As we've said before, we please just ask you to bear with us on the details. We'll provide the latest information that we have as of today, but with many investigations, things do change, so please understand that as the time progresses, we may have additional information to provide. This is the 16th officer-involved shooting of this year and the 9th fatal officer-involved shooting of the year. At the same time in 2023, we had 8 officer-involved shootings, 3 of which were fatal and 5 of which were non-fatal. This recent event was reported as a suicide attempt at a hotel property located in the 9700 block of South Las Vegas Boulevard. The call took place at approximately 5:40 a.m. And if you look to the screen at my left, you'll see a map of the location. The officer involved in this incident is Zachary Adam. He is 45 years old, and he has been with the LVMPD since 2006. Officer Adam was armed with the LaRue Tactical LT-10 .308 rifle equipped with an optic. The investigation revealed he fired 1 round. Officer Adam is assigned to our Tactical Operations Division, Special Operations Bureau, and he is a member of our SWAT team. The suspect involved in this officer-involved shooting was identified as Cesar Reyes II. He was a 26-year-old Hispanic male adult, 5'7", weighing 200 pounds. Reyes was armed with a pump-action Winchester shotgun, as well as a Glock 26 9mm semi-automatic handgun. You can see a picture of his weapons to my left. Had Reyes survived, his charges would have been 2 counts of assault on a protected person with a deadly weapon and 1 count of resisting a public officer with a firearm. The details of this officer-involved shootings are as follows. On December 8, 2024, at approximately 5 p.m., the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department received a call from the hotel security regarding a potential suicidal individual at a hotel at the 9700 block of South Las Vegas Boulevard. The initial welfare check was requested by the individual's family, who had grown concerned after they discovered a suicide note left at his home in California. The hotel room in question was rented by the individual identified as Cesar Reyes II. Hotel security knocked on his door to conduct a welfare check but received no response. Upon attempting entry, they found the safety latch engaged and reported hearing the sound of a firearm being racked from inside the room. As a precaution, the hotel staff backed away from the room and contacted LVMPD for assistance. Patrol officers arrived and attempted to make contact with Cesar, but he remained unresponsive. At that point in time, the situation was deemed a barricade, prompting the deployment of the LVMPD SWAT unit as well as our crisis negotiators. Despite extensive efforts to try to make contact and communicate with Cesar, he did not respond over the course of several hours. SWAT officers ultimately used an explosive breach to open the door to the room. Upon opening the door, Cesar emerged armed with a shotgun and attempted to flee down the hallway. During his escape, he tripped over one of our police robots, causing him to drop the shotgun. At that time, Cesar then quickly stood back up, picked up the shotgun, and continued to charge down the hallway towards SWAT officer Adam and his partner. Officers gave multiple commands for Cesar to drop his weapon, but he continued to advance on them. Faced with an imminent threat, Officer Adam discharged his firearm, striking Caesar and bringing him to the ground. Caesar was then taken into custody, at which point the shotgun was recovered. A handgun was also recovered from Caesar's waistband at that time. Officers immediately began medical aid. However, despite their efforts, Caesar was pronounced deceased at the scene. We will now play video from LVMPD's Armor Robot, the police robot I mentioned earlier. As you can see, there was an explosive breach, followed by Caesar exiting the room in a moment. In the video, he's seen tripping and falling over the robot. He then gets back up, picks up the shotgun, and charges towards officers. We will now play body-worn camera video of the incident. As you can see in these still images, Caesar can be seen charging at officers while still holding the shotgun. And just to conclude the briefing, just remind our folks that these types of incidents are as a reminder for our entire community of the dangers our officers face on a daily basis. And for context, this was in a hotel and casino that was very busy because of a large event that was happening. And so our officers had to take the actions necessary to keep the community safe. With that, this concludes our briefing, and I have some time for some questions.
You mentioned the hotel and casino is quite busy at that time. Can you explain what factors play into what these officers are calculating with those factors?
Well, with any large casino hotel property, there's already a lot of people, even on the slowest days in Las Vegas. In this case, this hotel in particular was hosting a very large event. It's one of our larger events in town in Las Vegas in this particular month, which made it quite busy, more than the normal busy. So in our officers, anytime they're responding, it's not just a matter of ensuring that all of the people that are on the same floor are evacuated to make sure that they're not in danger, but then we still have an entire casino property of people that are still there. You can't evacuate everyone in some situations, and so you have to make sure you contain the threat the best you can.
One follow-up, Captain. Was there ammo also in the shotgun or in that Glock?
So our investigation is still early. As of now, it looks like that there was no ammunition in the shotgun.
First off, my deepest condolences to you and the officer's family regarding the incident this morning. I have two questions for you, one regarding this morning's incident. We've heard reports that the other person that was severely injured and airlifted, I believe, was also a Metro officer. Is that true? Can you confirm that?
You're referring to the traffic incident this morning where we lost our officer. So, first of all, I appreciate the condolences and appreciate the community support. Don't have the information to brief you on that incident. I can tell you that as of now, what we have is what we released in the press statement a little while ago. We'll be following up with additional details as we have it.
Okay, and regarding this incident, I know that Metro has tried year after year to reduce the number of OISs. Can you just refresh our memory on the use of lethal force, and is that what you all are trained to do in these situations where officers feel in danger?
Well, so since 2012, we made it a priority for this agency to be very transparent and effective in how we deal with officer-involved shootings. And so in 2012, I think it was at the time, Sheriff Doug Gillespie, we created our Office of Internal Oversight and Constitutional Policing, and that's where we have our Force Investigative Team and Critical Incident Response Teams. They work out of those offices, and ultimately they respond to every officer-involved shooting. It's part of an elaborate process, and it's the standard, in my opinion, for the nation. We've had agencies actually from across the world come visit us and see how we investigate our officer-involved shootings and how the process works. We are constantly improving. Since 2012, that was a long time ago. We acknowledge that our officer-involved shootings have gone up. I will say that it's important to also understand that violent crime has gone down. Our officers have been working very hard to bring it back down from really high periods of time. From 2020 and 2021, we had very high crime. And our officers have done a really good job. And this year, I mean, we're over the 20% down in homicides, and I don't want to give you the exact quote, but over 5-6% down in crime altogether, all crimes. So we're doing really well in fighting crime, but unfortunately we can't control all the circumstances when we encounter armed individuals or dangerous individuals. And in some situations, our officers are left with no choice but to take deadly force.
In the training, or in the footage, you see that they'll drop a knife in your training. How long are officers trained to give people time to drop their weapon before they start shooting?
So every situation is unique and has its own circumstances. Officers do the best they can to try to warn whatever individuals we're encountering, whether they're about to deploy a low lethal tool or they're about to deploy deadly force, if they need to tell the person to drop a weapon or drop a gun. But some situations there is a split second and there's no time to communicate that particular verbiage. Other times there's more opportunity to do so. So there's no standard answer for every single officer involved shooting. I can tell you for this particular case, you can see that our officers, our SWAT officers in particular, who I think are some of the best trained officers, not just in our agency, but in the country. We have an exceptional SWAT team. They really went through great lengths to try to give the suspect an opportunity to drop his firearm. In particular, they waited quite some time as he continued to charge down the hallway before they felt they had no choice but to use deadly force.
And following up, I guess, was there a mental health professional also at the scene when you guys learned that it was a suicidal individual?
So I'm not sure what other individuals you're referring to in terms of mental health professionals. I can tell you that our department does provide crisis intervention training to every single officer, and so that way we have an opportunity to try to intervene when someone's in crisis. In this case in particular, in addition to that, we have some of our best crisis negotiators, which is the ones that respond with our SWAT team. They respond out and they try to communicate, but it's difficult, or in this case impossible, to provide any kind of support if the person's unresponsive entirely and not answering. Our officers spent quite some time trying a variety of mediums to make contact and offer those resources, but in this case, there was no response.
Captain Koren, so one more question. I know you mentioned that this investigation is in its preliminary phases, but still, is there any belief that police had that Caesar was intending to do harm to others? And one follow-up to that, if I may. You mentioned that he was quiet for periods of time. Was there any exchange officers had with him, and if so, what was that exchange?
So I'll answer the last question and then I'll go to the first one, and I think we'll have to wrap it up just for time. But so your last question in terms of communication with the suspect, there was no communication. He was unresponsive to security, as I said earlier, when they tried to conduct a welfare check, and then he was unresponsive to our patrol officers. And then when our SWAT team and crisis negotiators responded, they tried a variety of mechanisms to try to get a hold or communicate or try to provide assistance best they can, and there was none of that option available. At some point, there's no choice but to try to open the door to see what we're dealing with, and at that point, he surprisingly decided to take action against our officers. As for your second question, I'm sorry, repeat it so I get it right.
I know this investigation is still in the preliminary phase with motive, but do you believe in this investigation that he had the intention of doing harm to others?
So the short answer is it's too early to determine that in this investigation. I can just tell you that we do take that into account when we respond to an area, like I said, in this case, a casino hotel property where there's a lot of people, and we do not know the intentions of the subject, whether they want to just harm themselves, whether they want to harm the law enforcement officers that are arriving there, or if they have other plans to harm other people. We don't know that, and we can't make that assumption here, but we do take that into the calculus when we determine what we need to do to contain the threat. So with that, we really appreciate your time. Thank you for being out here, and we'll provide additional details as we have them.